and in which context we can use it, and more importantly, we can automate it. Then in a second time, Cedric and I will show you 3 examples of how to create a REST API test in Cerberus, from a very simple test case to a more complex test case, which will be near to the reality. Then Antoine will talk about GraphQL API tests in Cerberus, and then Benoit will do the same, but about Kafka. Finally, we will answer your questions, but you can also write a question in the chat during the meeting, and we will answer you. So let's start. So very quickly, to remind you, what is an API? An API, or we can also call it a service, is a sum of rules, protocols, and mechanisms enabling programs to communicate. So to recap, an API is a link between, more generally, a database and your project, your server, your digital project. And it's appear in the back part in a digital project to manage information between the database and your project. You can just get information, modify information, and verify it. So it's very useful and very simple to create it in a test case, and to automate it, we'll see it. So as I said in the start, Cedric will in the first time show you 3 cases of how to create an API in Cerberus. It will be theoretical, and then in the second time I will show you the same test cases in Cerberus to be more concrete. We'll also talk about what is a token and an API key in this subject. Cedric, I'll let you share your screen.
Yes.
Okay. Oh.
Everyone see my screen?
Yes.
We don't see your face, but we see your screen.
Perfect. For this meeting API, we have created 3 practical cases: simple, with token, and with dynamic token. So let's go for this first practical case. We perform a get on the API HTTPS retool API, and we check the return code 200. The first step is to create the application with host. And the second time, we have to create this service. The host of your application and this service path of your service forms the complete URL of your endpoint. And the last step is create your test case. We have to choose the action set service call content that allow you to keep the JSON path response. And we have created two control with verify element text equal on HTTP attribute HTTP return code and either expires, and verify 200 and less one. So this is a test case without token. The second practical case is with token. Again, create application, create service, but on service we add the authorization, mirror property token, and create again a test case with action and control, but also properties generated token with static value in this example. So we run test case. Your test case call your service, and your service call your application, and your service call your generated token. on your properties test case. For the last example, this is with a dynamic token. So create again application, service, and test case. But this time we have to create a data library and a new service for post your token. So the service generate validate valid token, create your token. Your data library keep this response, and your test case call your data library. Yeah. And again, your test case call your service call your application, and your service call again your token. So this is your turn, Simon.
Yes. I will show you the same test cases, as I said, but in Cerberus this time. It will be more concrete. And as I said in the chat, you can get this demonstration at the end of the meetup. We just need your emails, and we will share you this file. So, do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's go. So we'll go to the first simple test case. So it's create an application, a service, and call a service in Cerberus without token. So first of all, I will create my application. So I will use this one that I created. I gave it a name, and I chose the type, so service application. I start also. I chose the system. It's the system for the test. And I created an environment with the host. The host is the base URL I will use for every service linked to this application. We will see later. Now that I created my application, I can create several services linked to this application. So I created one in service library. I created this one. So I gave it a name. I chose the type REST. I linked my service to the application host API that I created just before. Method get, but you can choose a different method. And then I filled the service path. It's my service. And the API is it's a combination of the application host plus my service path. We'll see later in the test case when I will run it. It will be more clear. So now I have my application, I have my service. I created a test case with them. So this one, I have one step with several actions and several verifications. The first action is call service. It's simply to call my service I created before in service library. I just put the name of my service I want to call here. And the second action is set service call content. This action will allow me to get all the information of my API, and I will be able to do verifications into my API. So I will do a verification about the return code is 200. The line expires is -1, and then the first name in the list is this one. So I run my test case, and it's okay. When you run a test case with a service, you have two files generated. You have the response of your API, so you have the list of the name because it's a free use API I'm using here. So you have the response, And the more important file is the service call. The service call, you can get also the response of your API here, and you have the information of the header of your service. It will help if you are an error in your call service. We'll see in the next test case. And here you can check. We have the return code 200. We have expires -1 that we do the verifications, and we have the first name, the list, the good one. To do verification, just for your information, I do a JSON pass method to get the information. So it's $dot, and you do it like it was displayed in the response file. No, sorry, in the service call file. Response header, and then expire, and you get the information here. Same in the response body. Response body, and then ID number 0 is this one. Response, HTTP response body, 0, name, and you have this one. Okay, let's go to the second test case. So we will use a token. A token is very quickly is a security key, but it's a security key. It's a security key. Sorry, valid in the duration because it will expire after some time. So in the second test case, we will just see how to put a token in your test case, and then in the third test case, the more complex, we will see how to generate automatically a new token every time you will run your test case. So the second test case, like the first, I created an application. So this one, its name, its type, the system, and environment, like the first, with the host. I created the service I want to call from this application. So this one, like the first, where we linked it to the application, host API token, and we have the service path here with the method. But the difference between the first service in the first test case and this one is we have a header here with the authorization, and the authorization value is error and the token. Here we put the token into a property because we'll see in the third test case why I did that. But I could also hardcode the token here. But I put it in the property here. So every time I will call this service, it will check if it will get the token. It will put it here, and in the service, if the token is valid, the service will be called successfully. So I have my application, I have my service. I can go to my test case. This one, it's pretty similar to the first one. I have one step, two actions. The first to call my service I just created, and the service call content to get all the information of my API, and a verification of the response 200. So if and the difference is, so in property, I will call my property token. If you remember, in the header, it was mirror and property token. So my property is here. Token and hard-coded here. Here, it's my token. So I will run my test case. And I have an error. It's perfect. So if you know all the written code values, like this one, you know that 401 is when your token is invalid. If you don't know, it's not a problem, because in the service call file, you can check all the information as we saw previously. And we saw in the response body, there is an error, and it's said unauthorized and invalid token with the statute code. So you know the reason of why your service couldn't get called successfully. In fact, if I check my property and my token, I see there is the name of my cat just written here, so that's why my token is not valid. So I will erase it. And now my token is valid. Once again, it's a hard-coded token. It's not the right way to how it works, but it's to explain the way of the token is coded in the service. So now I can rerun my case, and it works because my token is valid. Now let's get to the third and more complex test case to generate my token automatically every time I will run my test case, because it's not practical to every time change the token in the property when it's hard-coded. So for this case, I will use the same application for the second test case. So this one, it won't change. I will use also the same service. So this one, if you remember, there is an header with the authorization with the property token. It will be more important, this one. And I created a new service to generate valid token, because to generate a valid token is also an API. More generally, you can ask it to your dev teams. They will create you an API, a service to generate valid token for your project. So you just have to create a service in your service library, independent, to generate valid token. If we see the configuration, we have a name, the type, REST, no application linked to, because it's an independent service, with the method post here, and the service path. It's a fake. Just for your information, it will be the full URL to generate the valid token. And there is an header with the content type. Generally, is this information. Just have to copy and paste this information here. And the authorization, it's the basic key. Here, it's not a real one. It's the same for the token service. You can ask to the dev team, they will give you the value to put here. So if I recap, we have, for this test case, one application, one service linked to this application, and a second application independent to generate valid token. Now let's go to the test case. I created this one, test case. It's exactly the same as the second one. So one step, two actions, and one verification. But this time, the property token is not hard-coded here. It's a data library. It's an information get from the data library, so this one. And the data library, if we see it, it's type service, and it's linked to a service, the service that I created to generate valid token. And in this data library, the information that I get is the access token from the service linked to that data library. Just for be more concrete, more clear, when you generate a token with the service for generating a token, you have a result like this. So you have the access token, and the value is the token we need to call services successfully. And we have the token type. mirror, and the duration. Let's get back to the test. So from my property token, they will go to the it will go to the data library linked to the service generate valid token, and it will get the information value of the access token as we saw. And so when I will run my test case, when I will call my service, this one, if you remember, in the header of this service, there is a mirror and property token. So it will call the property and etc. It will generate the token and we'll get this one. I can run here this test case because it's a fake one, because I didn't fill the service the endpoint to generate token. But now you know the procedure how to create a test case with an API and with generated automatically token. We just talk about I talk about XAPI key. It's if you don't know what it is, it's another security key, but it's a very it's how I can say it. It depends from your project. So for this one, you can also ask to the dev team. They will give you the value, and for the XAPI API key, you can put it in the property in hardcoded. So you can just add it XAPI key in text, like this, and in your service, I said, and in the service you can just add in the header, as we did for the token here. And call it for the property like this. And it will call your X API key every time you will run your post. Okay, so I think I'm done with the subject. I will now let Antoine talk about GraphQL API.